Hello, welcome back. Today I want to talk about something that's a little bit tricky, and I want to talk about buying a house and all of the things that you should think about when you're buying a house. Now, we are told from the time that we are little kids that you need to have that house with the white picket fence and the dog in the yard and the whole thing. But that's also coming from our parents who bought houses for like $30,000 back in the day and are now selling them for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for us to see that level of return, that like 10x return, we'd have to sell that same house for millions of dollars. So we're probably not going to see that return in the time frame that they did. So thinking through all of the things that go into buying a house, I want to start with the actual payments. Now, the first thing that you do when you go in to buy a house is you go, okay, well, how much house can I afford this year? Pre-approved for some amounts, okay? And then you don't know what that means, and you're like, well, but I can buy a $500,000 house, so I'm going to spend every penny that I can, and da-da-da-da-da. And then you end up strapped with some mortgage that you don't know if it's good, you don't know if it's bad, but you're just trying to afford it and all this other stuff. And then all of the other costs come in. And this is what I do with people when I sit down and they're thinking about buying a house and I say, look, I want to actually put all the costs out there for you so that you go, oh my God, this is a lot bigger number than I thought it was. And maybe we shouldn't spend all the way up to what we're pre-approved for. Because all they care about is that you make your mortgage payment, right? They don't care about is how well you take care of the property or any of the other things that go along with it. So let's dive into this, right? First things first, the average house price in America as of like the end of last month was $415,000 or so at a little over 7% interest rate for 30 years. If you do the math, the payments come out to about $2,800 a month. Now, if you do the math backwards and you just say $2,800 a month times 30 years times 12 months in a year, you're going to pay over $1 million for your $415,000 house. That's just the way that goes. Now, I did some researching, and the average rent price to get an apartment is around $2,000. So that $800 difference, simple math is $2,000 times the 360 months. You're spending $720,000. And your first response to this should be, but John, I will have equity in my house when it's paid off. You're paying an extra $300,000, but you got a $400,000 property, right? So that makes sense. We should do that. Here's the thing. With that $800 difference, if you can afford that extra $800, what you should do is invest that into the market throughout the 30 years. And this is what happens, okay? Let's say we took $500, not even the full $800, we took $500. Or you want to say rent prices are higher or whatever. Fine. Let's say we take $500 a month, $6,000 a year. Let's say we only invest it at the end of the year, so that we don't get the benefit of growth throughout the year. I went back, pulled the S&P, we'll just say we invest in the index for the last 30 years. So we're going back to 1996, because I couldn't get back to 1994. Chart wouldn't. Anyways, going back that far, investing $6,000 a year, the market was mostly flat for like 10 or 15 years there. And I took the peaks and said, that's what we're investing in. So you would actually see more returns than what my model would show. But even still, you would have almost $590,000 after 30 years of investing $6,000 a year for the entire time that you're paying off that mortgage, or that you're paying rent instead of a mortgage. $590,000. You have a lot more than that in then the equity of your $416,000 house. You can go buy it for cash and have 150 grand left over, or whatever the number is. And then what? Buy a boat? Anyway. Also, along the way, when you're going, well, but whatever, the other thing that you have to consider that nobody ever wants to talk about when you go buy a house, because what they want to sell you on is that dream of home ownership. What they don't sell you on are all the freaking chores, man. You got to mow the yard every couple of weeks or week. You got to take care of the pool, get the chemicals right, drive back and forth to the freaking pool place. You got to add water to it, so your water bill goes way up. You do this, that, and the other thing. It is a pain in the ass. We have a hot tub. I got to clean it out quarterly because then it grows mold, so you have to flush the whole thing out and put new water in it. I was talking to one of my buddies the other day. I said, I could do chores until I die around this place and still never catch up. So the alternative is you hire out those chores, which then cost more money, which you're not doing at an apartment, by the way. Something to think about. You're not doing any of these chores. You live in an apartment with a pool. You go use the pool whenever you want to use the pool. You don't have to take care of the pool, worry about the chemicals, do any of that stuff. They do it. It's built into your rent price. You have nice shrubbery out there and whatever. And if they have a grill and this and that, like you can use all of that stuff. And you don't have to take care of it. Something to think about, right? Now, there are benefits to owning a house, like you can paint the walls and you can do whatever you want. If you want a DIY project, I added a fire pit out off to the side of our house. You can't do that at an apartment. Maybe they have a fire pit already, but that's besides the point, right? So like there are some things like that that you can do. Back on the flip side, you're gonna have to repaint your house a few times over that 30-year mortgage. You're gonna have to put a new roof on it. They say you need a new roof like every 20 years. So that's gonna happen during your 30-year mortgage. That's like $20,000. Then repainting is another like $10,000 every time you have to repaint, which is like 5 to 10 years or something. So all of this extra money that you're putting into it, and we're assuming that you bought a brand new house that was good to go and had no problems. Most people, I was talking to one of my buddies that the house that they bought, within a few years of owning it, they found out that the wood inside the walls had like rotted and the surveyors couldn't have caught it because of the way that it happened. But they had to like redo their entire house. It was a 6-figure project. So what do? Well, the number one argument for buying a house is you get equity in the home and you own the home. You take out a home equity loan. So now you've lost all the equity in your house and you're paying interest on it so that you could fix it. And that doesn't add to the value of your house. Putting a new roof on it doesn't add to the value of your house. Repainting it doesn't add to the value. You still have the same house with the same value. You've just dumped extra money into it. So when we're thinking about the investing side of things and you're going, well, I end up with this, almost 600 grand in investments, layer on the new roof and all the paint jobs and all the stuff. And when something goes wrong, your renter's insurance is cheaper than your homeowner's insurance because you don't have the liability of when something goes wrong. When something goes wrong in an apartment, the guy who owns the apartment has to fix it. He has to pay that insurance and the deductible and everything else. You don't. So if you took the difference between the insurance and you invested that, you would end up with a lot more money over time living in an apartment, and then you could turn around and pay cash for a house. Pay the actual $416,000 as opposed to $1 million, and have the money there for when stuff goes wrong. And what you should be doing ahead of time is going, okay, I'm not paying $2,800 a month. I'm actually putting aside, I'm paying the $2,800 to check the box for the bank, and I'm putting aside a bunch of other money for all this other stuff that at some point will need replaced, will need done, might break, might whatever. And that's how you do home ownership. It's a lot more complicated than just what you're pre-approved for and going out to get it. And I say all of that, and I want you to know, we live in a house, so I harp on it all the time, and I'm like, we could just get an apartment and stuff. But we live in a house too, and we do all these costs too. It is doable. It is just a lot bigger problem than most people really want to anticipate and want to think about when they're buying a house. They get just caught up in the dream of buying a house, and they don't think about the actual cost of it all. So if you're thinking about getting a house, please think through all of that stuff. If you have questions about it, let me know. I have so many things written down that I walk through with people, and I'm like, how much money do you want to put aside a month for your new roof? They're like, I don't know, I never thought about it. I'm like, no kidding. No one ever thinks about it. And then they need a new roof, and $20,000 later on a credit card, now they're thinking about it, right? So please let me know if you have any questions or anything like that. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Hopefully it didn't just make you super mad, or maybe it did, and then you'll message me about it anyway. Either way, have a good weekend. I'll see you around.